The idea of a Final Fantasy IX remake is one that sounds appealing, especially considering the fact that it's been 2 decades since the game was first released for the PS1. I believe that game sold over 5.5 million copies in sales since its initial release, and even though it wasn't like within the top 10 in terms of being the best-selling games in the PS1, it was still pretty popular, and I believe it fell behind the likes of Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, because Final Fantasy VII was one of the best-selling games for the PS1 when it came out back in 97. I believe Final Fantasy VII reached over 10 million copies in terms of sales. Final Fantasy VIII reaching over 8.6 million copies in sales following its release for the PS1 back in 1999. Now, the idea of a Final Fantasy IX remake is one that sounds pretty cool. Having, not just remastering it, but just remaking it similar to how Square Enix did with Final Fantasy VII. And, with the whole, like time active battle thing, battles taking place in real time and all that, and just kind of maybe add a little bit more to the storytelling aspect of Final Fantasy IX. I know we had like cartoonish graphics with Final Fantasy IX in comparison to that of some of the other installments within the series, but I think that's one of the things that made it stand out. If they kept that would be pretty cool. If they changed it, it'd be something new, and I think it'd be something that would definitely turn heads. But as far as whether or not Final Fantasy IX deserves an official remake from Square Enix, I believe it does, but the question is whether or not it's actually going to happen. And I wouldn't say that it's not a possibility, but at the same time, nothing's been confirmed yet. But hopefully, they will do something sometime in the future. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and just hope for some kind of announcement in regards to a Final Fantasy IX remake sometime in the future.